What is gravy, my dudes? Welcome back to Storytime with your favorite Reddit fairy. My name is Lorna, and today we're getting into the top 5 r/malicious compliance posts of the day, plus a bonus or two. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get right into it. Need proof I'm sick? Sure. Posted by user Pip0708. Over the last several months, I have been sick twice. Once I was out of work for 4 days due to an awful bout of food poisoning, which may be the worst I have ever felt. And, most recently, I was out of work for a day about a month ago due to what I believe was a stomach bug. Upon returning to work, I was told by my supervisor that she is going to need to see more proof that I'm actually sick and not just taking time off for the hell of it. Now, I'm sure I'm not the best worker she has ever had, but I pride myself on never missing a day unless I'm in awful shape, and I hardly ever take vacation, and I feel extremely guilty whenever I'm out of office. Fast forward to 2 days ago. Not sure what the fuck happened, but I went from feeling completely normal to vomiting uncontrollably in a matter of 30 minutes. The vomiting and other fun excrements continued for the rest of the night. My first thought was, fuck. I'm not going to be able to work tomorrow, and how am I going to prove how I'm sick again? This is when I thank God for my trusty new iPhone. I pulled up the camera and turned on the video feature and recorded myself vomiting for about 5 minutes before looking at the camera and saying, "Supervisor's name, I won't be coming in tomorrow. Hope this is good enough proof of how crap I feel." Back in work today, and she said she no longer needs proof that I'm ill. Edit. Your standard did not expect this to blow up post. Thanks for all the love. Hearts. I'm not sure what that meant. Your standard did not. Anyway, for all those saying I should go to the emergency room, you're either still on your parents' health care plan or don't live in America. I'm not a woman, so there's very little chance I'm pregnant. Regretting not using the new Slow-fee feature on the iPhone. Back at work now and feeling much better. That's gross. Can you imagine being on the recipient or the receiving end of seeing that video? Oh. And then can you imagine if it started like a chain reaction of vomiting everywhere? There's a lot of people that all they have to do is hear the word vomit and they start vomiting. So if you're one of those people listening, and I'm very sorry. All right, my dudes, let's get into the next story here. But before I do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications for future videos just like this one. If you want a TV, then you have to carry it the whole way home. Okay. Posted by user MonsterChic16. Okay, so where I'm from, there's 2 times a year where you can put anything you want to throw out on your front lawn and it'll be picked up at no cost. I didn't know if it's just my home state that does this or if most states or even countries do this. Where I'm living now used to, but doesn't anymore, and that's a basic description of what happens. For kids, it's like Christmas because it's common to go to others' trash piles and grab anything you like. One man's trash is another man's treasure, am I right? I've gotten a desk chair, roller skates, toys, DVD players, a mini trampoline, etc. It's always fun to see what you can find. And now onto the story and the malicious compliance. So when I was 12, my mother sold a lot of our things, TVs and such included, and put anything we couldn't or didn't want to sell in storage while she dragged us all over the country for her book tour. We were homeless, living on the road and all that. Anyway, when we finally returned to our home state, we moved into a rental house in a city 4 hours from where we used to live. And then the unpacking happened. My mother had sold the family TV and so stole mine, which I'd purposely kept, and made that the family TV. I was understandably pissed since it wasn't my fault that she'd sold their TV. Why'd I have to give up the one of my only big items I'd been allowed to keep? Months went by and then that glorious day came and my siblings and I were allowed to wander the nearby streets looking for hidden treasures. That year, everyone had been transitioning from analog TVs to digital ones, so the streets were filled with analog TVs that were being thrown out. Almost every house had one on their lawn. I took my siblings home after some successful treasure hunting and begged my mother to help me bring one of the TVs home. It wouldn't have taken very little effort on her part to get to the car and drive it to one of the TVs I had walked to and bring it home. We were both used to some heavy lifting, so between the two of us, it would have been a piece of cake and free. But no, she refused. If you want a TV so bad, you have to carry one back to the house by yourself. It wasn't a challenge or a tone that was in any way positive or encouraging. It was a tone that said, I won't help you when you can't do it alone, so just give up. With a hint of smugness, waiting for me to dejectedly walk to my room in defeat. No way. Fine. Just make sure to hold the door open for me when I get back so I can get it inside. I turned and left, determined to prove her wrong. Yeah, sure you will, she had replied, sarcastically. So I went front lawn to front lawn looking for a good TV. There were many that were way too big to carry and others that didn't have any good way for a singular person to grip them and would slip when I tried to pick them up. Eventually, though, about 2 blocks from our house, I found a, still relatively large, TV with 2 grip holds and was square enough for me to pick up. I lugged that thing, arms protesting and back aching, the whole way home and set it down right in front of the door. Mom, come hold the front door open for me. The look on her face was priceless. She just stood there, dumbfounded, before I reminded her that I'd only done what she told me to do. I brought that baby inside and placed it on my TV stand, where I proceeded to hook up my DVD player and give my mother a shit-eating grin when it turned on. I had that TV for years until I eventually had to put it out of my own front lawn when I got a digital TV of my own. The funny thing about this, though, is that the TV had to be moved a couple times while I owned it, moving house and the like, and I couldn't lift it again. It was too heavy, and even with my mother helping, we both struggled to get it out of the house. Yet, 12-year-old me had managed to lift it all by herself. The desire to maliciously comply and spite my mother gave me momentary burst of super strength in order to accomplish my task. I still look back and laugh at how my stubbornness and spite empowered me like that. Edit. And it's official. This post about my spiteful younger self's badass malicious compliance is now my top post. Was not expecting that. Well, good for you, OP. I really like this story because this is the kind of malicious compliance that I can get behind. And also, I hope your back is okay, like, as an adult, is all I'm saying. Because I used to be a child like that would, like... I grew up just at the end of the time. Well, not the end, because it's still kind of happening. But it wasn't as bad as it was for others. Let's say it that way. But I was a child around a time where girls were still not allowed to do boy things. Like... My high school, for example, never had a female on the wrestling team until I came along. Even when I was younger, I tried pushing really hard to get on the football team, but I wasn't successful. But, you had to pick your battles as a woman or, a female growing into a woman at that age. But, it wasn't like you're not allowed, but it was still really hard. And it still kind of is for a lot of women, so... That being said, I would have probably done the same thing because I was a little rebel growing up. So, yeah, that concludes this rant. So let's get on to the next story. Sign off under my name when I'm on vacation? I'll report you to Congress. Posted by user KP Deadwolf. Not my story, but a family member's from when he worked for the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. So details may be a little fuzzy. Also, first time posting, not entirely sure if it fits. TLDR at the bottom. A while ago, he knew a guy who we'll call Rick, back when they worked for the FDA. At the time, and maybe still today, who knows, the FDA had a policy that whoever approved a drug application, which were all hard copies at the time, needed to manually sign off on the application to ensure they knew what they were doing. Otherwise, it was the kind of violation that other, much nastier parts of the government would immediately get involved in. If anyone is wondering why this was such a big deal, look up Francis Kelsey and the whole thalidomide crisis. One day, Rick gets an application on his desk, but it doesn't even follow the proper application procedures, so there's absolutely no way he can approve it. It's his last day before vacation, so he decides to leave it and formally reject it once he's back. A week or two later, Rick gets back from vacation to find out that, much to his surprise, the application has been approved, ostensibly by him. Now, obviously, this is impossible, so he does some digging and asks around, only to find out that his own boss has approved it for some reason, but didn't manually sign off on it. He takes the hard copy application to his boss's office and requests to know why the boss approved it under his name when it wasn't even filled out correctly. Boss is evasive and refuses to give a proper answer and basically laughs Rick off when Rick tries to tell him that he's not on board with a clearly incorrect application getting approved under his name. Now, Rick is a good employee, and so of course he's obliged to follow the rules. The rules say that because the boss never manually signed off, this needs to be reported. But Rick is also a nice guy, and he doesn't want to report his boss and get him in trouble without giving his boss a chance to fix it, without getting investigated for the serious violation it is, even though this is only the latest incident in the history of his boss not appreciating Rick's expertise. So Rick decides to send an email to his boss's bosses. In fact, he sends an email to his entire department informing them of his boss's mistake, kindly letting them know that, as per their rules, he will be informing Congress. Yes, that Congress, of the violation, as the rules actually state he should do. Is it overkill? Probably. But the drug application is immediately rescinded and Rick's boss gets rapidly hustled into a meeting with all his bosses. This isn't the first time Rick's been treated poorly despite being a valuable employee, so he retires a week later and, due to the FDA's retirement policies, gets government health insurance and a stipend for the rest of his life because of how long he's worked for them. Boss was retired fairly soon after as well, but without the benefits, if you know what I mean. TLDR, FDA boss approves unapprovable drug application under Rick's name while Rick is on vacation. Rick lets his whole department know that he's supposed to tell Congress about his boss's decision, and said decision is very quickly undone. That is going out with a bang right there, I think. But, yeah, why? Why bother? Why do you do that? Just man your own station. Play in your own sandbox. You got your own set of rules and shit that you need to follow. You don't know other people's rules and stuff, so just don't do it. There's so many people that like to micromanage, and they're like, oh, it'll look better if all this stuff gets approved, or I don't know what the fuck goes on in there, but you know what I mean? They're just use your heads. You're dealing with drugs here, so think about it. Karen and her email problems, posted by user Doublekill. This story was originally meant for r/Tales from Tech Support, but due to their rules, it wasn't allowed to be posted there. It's kind of a mix between revenge and a tech support call. TLDR at bottom. A bit of background. I own a web hosting and MSP company, which I've set up 2 years ago with some friends with similar interest. We have a few serious clients, but things have been sailing smoothly and quietly for some time. We're not a big company, and we only spend a few hours a week doing actual work for it. So we have a phone support, even though nobody is almost ever physically at a desk when we get a call. We only get calls maybe twice a week. We pick up, walk to a PC, or grab a laptop in the meantime. Sometimes it takes a minute after picking up the phone before we can actually help. Most of our clients know this and have no problem with it at all. We usually provide quick solutions, and most of the time we do support for free. The actors. Me, obviously. Karen. Angry lady, client company's administrative person. She was just hired 2 weeks ago. Boss, client boss that I've had regular contact with. The story. Me. Insert standard corporate greeting. Karen. Hi, I'm Karen from company. I have issues sending email. Me. I'm sorry to hear that. If you give me a second, I'll walk to my desk so I can look into it. Now, it's important to note that we know most contacts from the bigger clients and are on a first-name basis with most. Although we are not a big company, we provide services tailored to our clients' specific needs. As such, we have regular conversations over email discussing their services. This was the first time I spoke with Karen since she got hired recently. Karen. Why aren't you at your desk already? This is urgent and I need this sorted ASAP. We're not paying for your time if you're slow and unhelpful. Me. Screams internally already. Me. I'm sorry, Karen. I'm just now arriving at my desk. I see you've been recently added to the mail system. Is this the first time you've tried sending an email from your... Karen interrupts me. Now, I've sent many emails, probably more than you. I know how to send an email, okay? Me, possibly sounding a bit annoyed. I was going to ask if this is the first time you tried to send an email from your corporate email account. Karen, yes, it is. Why? Me, could you tell me what email client you're using? Karen, I'm using my company's webmail client. Me, all right, that's good. Did you get any error message that you can tell me? Karen, yes, I don't know what it is, and I'm not at my desk right now. Give me a minute to look it up. I don't know why she wouldn't stay at her desk after giving me shit for it earlier. Karen, okay, so the error message is, says her interpretation of the error without saying the actual error. The part where I jumped the gun and should have paid more attention. Me, it sounds like your inbox is full. Your company has a 50 gig shared mailbox limit. I can up the limit to 60 gigabytes for the rest of the month so you can continue to use the email system while you archive some old emails by printing physical copies or move them to your company's cloud storage. Karen, I don't want to archive my email. Me, alternatively, boss could order extra storage for email. It isn't that big of a change in cost. It should be well within the budget. Karen, I would rather archive my email then. This is where finally my bell starts to ring and I decide to check on the usage report, and sure enough, disk usage spiked over the last 2 weeks or so for her mailbox only. So I decided to ask some questions to get better insights into actually what's going on. Me, have you been getting any spam mails recently? Karen, yes, a lot of these non-deliverable have been popping up in my mailbox since I got hired. I was meaning to call for that too, but I just been so busy that I just delete them. I delete about 250 of them in the morning. Note, our system caps the sender's limit for email accounts to 250 a day to prevent our system from being used by spammers. You may see where this is going. Me, oh, that's not good. And this has been going on since you were hired? Karen, yes, it's really annoying. Please do something about it. Me, I will look into it now. Please stay on the line while I put you on hold. I dig up the SMTP log for her user account, and sure enough, every day for the past 2 weeks or so at exactly midnight, 250 emails are sent. Like clockwork. Most of the sent emails return as non-deliverable mail due to spam flags. Now, this is a mailbox that they use for their administration, meaning they get their invoices and appointments in there. She recently gained access rights to the mailbox, which is when things started to go wrong. Me, hi Karen, are you still on the line? Karen's phone plays hold music. In the meantime, I start investigating further. I change her password and gather everything I can find from our system regarding Karen administration mailbox and normal user mailbox. 20 minutes pass without the holding music taking a break. It's really getting annoying, so I hang up and call back. Boss picks up. This is where things start to go to shit. For Karen. Boss inserts client's corporate greeting, and I give my corporate greeting. I was just at the phone with Karen. I think her mailboxes might have been compromised for the past 2 weeks. Boss, oh, that's interesting. I'm with Karen right now. She's been in my office for the past 20 minutes telling me how you were rude to her and that you refused to help her, and that we should find a different company for our IT needs. Me, I'm sorry for any inconveniences that I may have caused. However, a hacked administration mailbox is a very pressing matter. I've spent the past half hour digging through logs, and I've come to the conclusion that almost directly since Karen was hired, spam started to be sent from the inbox. I think she might have used a weak password. Boss, all right, hold on. Boss returns from a 5-minute hold. Okay, so I have asked Karen about this, and she used generic dog name as her password. What needs to be done to take care of this issue? We do enforce a default password policy for all accounts on our systems. Our clients can disable this for email accounts by checking a box on the email account. Since Karen is in their company's administrator, she also needs to be tasked with creating and deleting email accounts for their colleagues. She edited her own email account to allow for insecure passwords. Her dog's name obviously didn't match the requirements, and she thought it was all unfair for another company to dictate what password she could use for her corporate email account. Me. Well, I have spent the past half hour looking for information regarding this breach. It is evident that spam has been sent from corporate domain. I cannot find any evidence that the hackers access mail in the mailboxes. However, I cannot conclude that they didn't either. Boss. So you're saying that they may have our entire administrative archive due to Karen's poor judgment calls for passwords? Me. That is basically what it boils down to. Unfortunately, there is no way to know this for sure. We don't log access to specific mails or folders, only authentication attempts, sent mail and received mail. I have no way of knowing if they downloaded or looked at any of your mail. I would advise you to change all passwords of every account with every site and system you use, just to be sure this doesn't result in any further breaches. Boss. That will take ages. I'll task Karen and some others to start doing this directly. Me. Well, we use a corporate password manager. This might be a nice solution for your company as well, as it would allow for you and your colleagues to store passwords securely and give extensive permissions to who can see which passwords. It will also allow you to easily keep track of all accounts that your company has, and since you don't have to memorize the passwords, you can use different and very secure passwords for everything without any issues. Boss. Yes, please. Will you put in an order for me? I need this for all my employees. Me. Will do. Anything else I can help you with? Boss. Yes, I need some accounts terminated, but I'll send them to you in a bit. Need to wrap up here first. About 30 minutes later, I received a termination request for all of Karen's accounts. She apparently heard what Boss said about her having to change all the company passwords, and she refused. She was fired on the spot. TLDR. Angry lady decides password policies are not important and uses extremely weak password on corporate accounts. Email box got hacked and possibly all of their mail archives were compromised. Tried to blame it on my company and got fired for her recklessness and lies. Edit. Switch from acronyms to names. Update. I just now received a call on my personal cell from the boss. I believe I once gave it to him for an on-site job at his house back when I was just getting started. He thanked me for my directness and not actually trying to fight the claims of Karen over the phone, as outgoing phone calls are recorded from my client's side. The recording was able to be used as evidence in support of her termination, so she has no chance of trying to fight it and couldn't argue outside pressure caused her to get her fired, as that is illegal in my country. I told him that I was happy to take care of all their business needs and hung up, feeling satisfied with my work for today. Edit 2. Wow, thank you so much for the platinum. Oh my god, okay, I love it. I was thinking about doing an r/Tales from Tech Support video today, but I started doing a part 5 story, like it had 5 parts, and I was just falling asleep. So I'm like, okay, I need to laugh at something or like feel good about somebody getting some kind of sweet instant gratification. So malicious compliance it is. But like I used to get callers like this all the time. People that they wanted like the simplest of passwords, and it's like, well, no, that's not the point of having a password. A password is supposed to be difficult so people can't guess it. So people can't get in there and start breaching yo shit. Know what I'm saying? But yeah, people just don't understand this. They're like, just make it fluffy. No, bitch, make it like a sentence. Like a whole sentence. You know what I'm saying? With punctuation, like proper punctuation, everything. Like something you could remember but would be really difficult for someone else to guess. The more characters, the better. And don't have the same passwords for everything. That's another big one. A lot of people would call and say, well, just put it the same as my email password. And I'm like, no. Let's not do that. We'll make it something else that's more secure. And we're going to change your email password while we're at it because God is not going to protect you. I'm sorry. And I'm talking about your password. I don't give a shit what your religious beliefs are. But I mean, as a password, God is not going to protect you. This was literally someone's password, and I had to sit there for, it was probably a good 5 to 10 minutes explaining to her why a 3-letter word, which is very easy to guess, is not going to protect her privacy. But in the end, she changed it, so. All right, my dudes, I think I got one more story, so let's get into it. Nope, I lied. I have two more. So this one is called Nowhere Does It State That I Can't Ride My Robot Down the Hallway. Posted by user I Void Your Warranties. In my school, there had been a tradition of riding things down the hallway for senior pranks. First, they did skateboards, then scooters, bikes, and eventually a motorcycle. It was my year to graduate, and I wanted to leave my mark, or at least have a rule made because of myself. For my senior project at the Votech Center, I had been working on a pneumatic ping pong shooter robot that was built on the old frame of a robot from our robotics team's previous years. This thing was about 140 pounds and strong enough to pull me. I proceeded to tie a little cart behind it that I sat on, wirelessly hooked it up to my laptop, and rode down the hallway at about 10 miles an hour, firing off the empty shooting mechanism. After I hit the other side of the building, right in front of the office, the vice principal came out of her office absolutely furious and made me put it back in the robotics room. She called my mother after. I wanted to let you know this happened, but I can't get him in trouble since he didn't break any rules. My mom just laughed as she knew I was going to do it. That is... Yeah, that's pretty perfect. I mean, he wasn't riding on the robot. The robot was pulling him down the hallway, but... Oh, it's kind of like a wholesome little malicious compliance. But like, why even bother calling the parent about that? Like, it's just ridiculous. Who cares? They're not hurting anybody. I mean, firing a shooting mechanism, though, maybe is kind of, with, the state of things these days, is probably not the greatest thing to be doing in a school, but just riding it down the hallway is just, who cares? It's not hurting anybody. All right, my dudes, and the last story of the day is called Malicious Compliance, My Aunt versus the Drunken HOA, posted by user Stalin Plus Love. This is originally posted in r/fuck HOA by the same user. So here we go. Since it's winter in the northern hemisphere and we are getting our fair share of snow, I have a story from my aunt. My aunt lives in a gated community in the PNW. She's at a higher altitude, so she gets a bit of snow. She is a nice lady, very active, and always helps other people. Her HOA is a drinking club, as she describes them, have a whole bunch of rules, some totally ridiculous, heavily enforced, and always changing. Usually when rules are changed, they get posted on some online community bulletin board from the days of dial-up. Also, they like to fine and shame people. My aunt never attended meetings because she has no time for drinking and cigarettes. As per usual, with a lot of bylaws, you have to clear the sidewalk in front of your house of snow and ice. My aunt, being the woman she is, and living in a 55-plus community, she always shovels her walk and salts it for ice. A couple of years ago, there was a heavier than usual snowfall, maybe over 20 inches in the higher elevations with some warm days, then freezing temperatures for a few days after. So for snowfall, she gets up early and shovels her sidewalk and her walk and sprinkles down some salt. It snows a few inches more, so in the later afternoon, she shovels the walk again and decides to salt again. She literally said she tossed a few handfuls of salt and the neighbor across the street comes running out demanding she stop salting, and it's a violation of HOA rule or whatever crap. It seems that a no salt rule was added to their book of great HOA rules. Reasoning is that salt crystals are unsightly, and posted on the unusable online bulletin board from 1999, which at this point, the online bulletin board had been replaced by an under-maintenance error page for the past few months. So there was no way the drunken HOA rule changes could be relayed to the commoners. Well, my aunt apologizes, gets a warning for the first time she salted, and a second for the handful of salt she applied in the second salting, and then gets another warning for not properly clearing the sidewalk. Well, my aunt left maybe a strip of about 2 to 3 inches for about 2 feet on the edge of her sidewalk, which wasn't properly cleared of snow. Not a big deal, she made an excellent effort, but the HOA neighbor didn't think so. Next violation would be a fine. Also, she had to clean up all the rock salt with a broom. My aunt ended up getting the new HOA rules in writing from the HOA neighbor, which she read over and realized they only stated salt in the sidewalk snow shoveling rule, but nothing about blue salt-free ice melt. Also, was stated is that the sidewalk should stay free of ice at all times. Also, she read a bit deeper to learn that street and sidewalk cleaning is covered by the HOA twice a year or as needed. Instead of risking HOA wrath of fines and some public shaming because now it's near impossible to prevent the sidewalk from freezing up, she decides she will challenge the vodka-induced reasoning of the HOA and will use the blue non-salt ice melt to keep her sidewalk ice-free. The next day after the overnight snowfall, she heads to the local hardware store to buy some blue non-salt ice melt, strikes up a conversation with the shop owner about her issue, who recommends these blue ice melting pellets, and throws in a bag of clay kitty litter on the house so she can stick it to them idiots. That afternoon, the temp rises just above freezing, and there is a heavy wet snowfall of a few inches which hits the ground wet, melts, and refreezes when temperatures go below freezing at nighttime. So instead of risking having a skating rink for a sidewalk, she clears the wet snow and then dumps a bunch of these blue ice melting pellets and a whole bunch of kitty litter. Overnight it freezes. Next day, she has the most ice-free sidewalk in all the neighborhood and it's covered in ice melt pellets. Well, it rains that day and her use of kitty litter and blue ice melt pellets don't go unnoticed by HOA neighbor. That afternoon, she is fined by the HOA officer in charge of fines for breaking rule number vodka section, stale cigarette smoke. She sees nothing wrong. The road is salted and sanded and looks like a mess, so her sidewalk doesn't look too bad, all blue and gray speckled and ice-free. Then gets a notice to clean up the salt, which she ignores because it's not salt she is using to de-ice her sidewalk, but blue salt-free ice melt pellets and clay kitty litter. Then, that day it rained, then froze and continued to rain, then snow, causing everything to be covered in ice and snow the next morning. It was a disaster. My aunt cleared the snow from her sidewalk and applied more blue pellets and kitty litter, which wasn't a task because luckily she had already applied so much that there was already no ice on her sidewalk or snow. Everyone else in the neighborhood had to chip the underlayer of ice after they risked a horrific fall while clearing the top layer of snow. She then was fined again, while neighbors had to actually walk in the messy street in some parts because sidewalks in some spots were unwalkable. Warnings and fines were given to other unsuspecting neighbors who couldn't attend the HOA booze meetings and had mistakenly used salt or had not chipped and cleared all the sidewalk ice in an acceptable amount of time. The next few days were blue skies and below freezing with ice everywhere. Sidewalks had been chipped but iced up over time with a thin layer of slick ice called black ice. People were falling, and now my aunt had a couple rogue neighbors using all types of non-salt ice melt. One guy made a solution of brine and molasses, which he sprayed on and got great results. Others used sand, brine, non-salt ice melters, and even 15 gallons of wine, which turned to vinegar, was applied. The HOA's alcohol consumption probably increased as the officer fell on a patch of black ice out front on his home, breaking his elbow while returning from delivery fines, warnings, and general nastiness. Eventually, the weather returned to above freezing levels and rain, which washed away all the various ice-melting substances. The rogue neighbors gathered at my aunt's house enjoying tea and snacks. Amongst them was the man who used brine and molasses, who happened to have a license to practice law and was retired with nothing else better to do than to ruin the drunk, useless HOA at the next meeting. He then invited himself to the next meeting with a file folder of all the fines and warnings with a statement of dispute for each one. Also brought his tablet to prove the online bulletin board wasn't working, which helped the case that the HOA wasn't providing proper means of communication to the residents, which meant the residents could sign a petition to fire the standing HOA members and appoint an interim HOA till the election. My aunt was appointed treasurer, found the previous regime spent HOA funds at the liquor store. The retired lawyer, president, who then went after the previous HOA for funds spent on booze. And they lived happily ever after. The end. Oh my god. Why do people get so crazy over stupid shit like this? Like the HOAs, I understand they're supposed to be there to protect, the homeowners in that area, but also to have that neighborhood a certain standard. But also, when it comes down to things that allow people to be safe, like, salting a walk, maybe salt's not good, but salt comes from the earth, does it not? Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just saying, like, it's it's there for safety reasons to clear salt and ice, or sorry, ice and snow off of cement. Like, why are you going to get on people for how it looks? It's, come on. It's just, this is why HOAs, I just feel like they shouldn't even exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they do good for some people in some areas, but all I ever hear is bad stuff. So if you have a good HOA story, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. All right, my little Redditlings, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like it, please smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and turn on notifications to be notified of future hilarious videos just like this one. And as always, the links to these stories will be in the description, so head on over to Reddit and show those posters some love with some upvotes. You know they deserve it. And don't forget to submit your stories, my dudes. Your pictures, your GIFs, all that fun stuff. All my contact info is in the description below, as well as the link to join the Discord server if you're interested. There's a whole bunch of good people there already. Join the conversation if you want. All right, my dudes, I hope you guys have a fan-fucking-tabulous day, and I will see you in tomorrow's episode. Rock on, my dudes.